Hey, this video's talking about the steering rack. I'm not going to rebuild it because there's a video that I have already how to disassemble it and reassemble it, but I do want to point out a few things that I have. So I'm actually rebuilding two racks. This one was from my May 71 Stag that I'd rebuilt 20 years ago. It started to leak and then finally failed. And this one from the May 71 has the control unit from the later control unit that I rebuilt, and I'll talk about that control unit separately. This one here is the one I rebuilt 2 years ago. This one has the earlier control valve, and the control valve started leaking, so I had to pull it apart. I did successfully get the rack working. However, it started to leak, so unfortunately I had to pull this apart. So now I've got two racks that need rebuilding. This is a rack shaft that came out of this one here, but the rack shaft I gave the other rack shaft I given to a buddy to work on, to do some things. But I just want to talk about this thing. So inside is a tube, obviously, and this rack shaft, it's called, slides up and down, back and forward inside this tube. It slides between here and here, and you can see that this is obviously smooth. I'm not sure if you can make out, there's a little bit of markings, a little bit here, but anyway, what's happened is on the rack shaft for that one, and then okay, so let me slide has a problem. I'll have to get a different light. Let's move that a bit here, that's better. Okay, so this thing called a cylinder sleeve, I've talked about it before, sits inside this shaft, and you push it in this way, and there's a seal that sits on that, and a ring, and the ring sits on the end, and that ring is there mainly so that when you put this over the rack shaft, you don't have metal to metal contact. Now over the years this ring wears out, and but you don't have the ring, doesn't come in the kit. I bought this from Roby, you can see there, and there's the part number if you need it. This ring, when it's new, I won't be able to do it now, but it slides over this shaft easily. But what's happening, that this is the unmachined part of the shaft and this is the machine part. There's a 10th tolerance difference. When this is new, this does not slide very well over this particular area of the shaft. Now when you dismantle the rack, you have to take it, this is, let's pull this one here as an example. The teeth go on this end, you have to pull it out this way, so this thing stays inside here, and as you pull it out, it slides over this, it slides over these teeth, and I think the documentation says it can cut the thing. They are sharp, and the thing is, what I noticed is this thing also is sliding over the teeth, and potentially can be, bits and pieces can be removed. I would recommend that they put this in the kit when you replace it, but you know, not necessary. I don't think so. I rebuilt this one using existing parts, and it lasted 20 years, so it may not be a point to do, but it's only a £2 seal from UK. Another thing that I noticed is that this is a seal that came from Roby. I bought this separately. It's made by Polypack, and this one is one that came out of a kit, and you can see there is a difference between the seals, and it seems like this one is far superior than this one. However, I'm not going to say one is better than the other, because I had this type in this rack that lasted 20 years. I also had this type in this one that only lasted 2 years. Now there is something that was happening with this rack, and probably why why this failed is that this has got a little rib on the end. This may not be the actual seal that I took out, but it was actually flattened. And I think what was happening is that this seal was not round, and it was wearing on one particular side of the seal, and that's what caused it to leak. But I don't know. What I plan to do is I have a couple of these. I'm going to try and use this particular type of seal in the middle tube. I'll use this seal in the end because it just goes in the end and sits there. That's what I'm thinking, just to try that. Anyway, let's talk about these tubes. This tube here is from a May 71, and you can see that this is using later control valve. This one here is the February 71, and you can see this thing here. This, you know, if you look at the document that I posted some time back, is these are interchangeable. The thing is, I don't think you can pull this out, but there is a seal here, and the way the seals are different, the way the control valve is lubricated is slightly different. In this one, the bearing is lubricated by the transmission fluid, because that's where the seal is. But on the later valve control unit, it's just grease. So that's one thing. Another thing I noticed is the end cap where the boot goes on. This side is, I think, 55 millimeters, yet this side is 50 millimeters. And so I know people complain about the boots out of UK being poor quality, so I bought this brand. Someone had mentioned this brand will work. They had it on their TR7, so I thought, okay, I'll buy two and I can give you the part number. But it does fit on here very well. Let's put it on the end. Very nice tight fit, but it's way too loose on the side. So obviously I need to look for another boot for this side of the rack, which is okay. Now, I talked about this earlier. When you want to center the rack with the steering wheel, there's this little dimple that you can see very clearly here, and that you basically, when you put the end cap on, you take that grease nipple out, do this, and you'll see that hole, dimple. Through that hole you put a little podger type thing in there, turn the rack backwards and forwards. When this centers, then you know the steering wheel should be straight, and then you can adjust your tie rods appropriately. Another thing with this thing, this is the sort of, I would sort of call it a piston. There's a O-ring under here. This is an early one, has a metal, I would say, a ring, like a piston ring. The later ones have the a nylon or whatever, you know, one of these in there. But I typically just leave this as is. This shaft is okay, not too bad. But as I said, I've noticed that if with the old one of these, I don't have it with me, but it's so far worn out that there was a little bit of metal to metal contact, and the shaft actually has some markings on the back. I think it's okay, but you can still see some markings. So as I said, this was 20 years. I'm definitely going to change this thing. I have a friend of mine who I asked him to, if you can make a tighter tolerance one than this. So then that means there's less contact. But what he pointed out, we were trying some things yesterday, is that this is a bit oversized to fit in that hole. And so when it maybe is pushed inside that lip, then it will reduce the tolerance on this, and it will, you know, this won't be in contact with that. But he's going to let me know, because this just slides pretty well, and I think there's about, I asked him if he can make me one, reduce the gap by about 5 thou, but he thinks that once you press this in, as I said, it won't go in easily. He's going to make me something to push it in, and it will hopefully reduce the tolerance. I am going to be redoing some of the shims in here. The shims are expensive, but I did find some things off Alibaba, and I got different size shims, and I'm just in the process of rebuilding one for this. What else do I need to talk about? Oh, yeah, this gasket with the earlier control valve. This gasket is important because it actually seals this oil is in here, but on the later type, I think just an O-ring. Actually, I'm not sure. No, maybe you do need a seal to seal this so it doesn't leak. Some people have mentioned that they have a leak here. You know, this is a little pitting, but not where the O-ring sits. But this one's okay, so it's not a big issue. Obviously, this tube is different for the left-hand drive and right-hand drive Stags. So that's this part of part one of the video. As I said, I'm not really going to be talking about rebuilding it, but these are the things to look out for. I will post the boot. We call them in America boots. I think in England they call them steering rack gaiters. I will find another one appropriately for the the driver's side. As I said, it is different. Again, you may want to invest in a couple of these. I do feel as you do separate it, you have to slide this over here. It takes a nick out of it. This one's not, again, this one's not so sharp, but the other shaft I have is sharp, so it could take a nick off it. You know, maybe if you're doing it a few times, it's not going to be an issue, but eventually it does wear. You know, the rack's 50 years old. I'm definitely going to swap it out with this. In the control valve, there's these things here, and I pulled this out. But if you notice, some people say the power lines don't. This is an old one, spare one. This is a right hand. This is my right hand drive one, spare one. I might have taken one out. Yeah, I did. That these are replaceable again for Roby, and if your power steering pipe has problems, it could be due to this not sitting properly. I don't know if you can see that it's not smooth, so my friend is going to just machine it flat. It's aluminium. You can buy them new for about £2, so that may be something worth considering investing. So yeah, I think that's I'll talk about basically the main part of the rack on this video, and I'll submit it. Just things which are slightly different between the two, and then at some point I will get to the control valve and I'll create another video. I have created another video, I just have to stitch it together and we'll go from there. But again, it's not a rebuild, or just wanted to give some observations and some things on the rack. Now I'm doing it again.